Welcome back to Morning Life. Now, as I mentioned before we took a break, a 22-year-old house-help has been sentenced to life imprisonment for defiling a 6-year-old boy in Migori County. Naima Matiko Thomas, of course, alias Auntie, was accused of defiling the minor at the central Kamagombo location in Rongo sub-county, Migori. She was said to have infected the minor with the STI, and Rongo Senior Resident Magistrate Raymond Langat ruled that the house-help deserved no mercy, even after she pleaded for forgiveness and a light sentence. He said the accused not only defiled the boy but also made him sick. The boy had to be put on medication, which had huge negative impact on him. The accused has 14 days to appeal the sentence. Right now in studio, I'm joined by Michael Muga, Wakili, who is with me in studio. And at the end of the day, we want to touch on these matters that affect young people, and not only young people, but men in society. When you talk about society not having women who actually perform these sexual violence incidences, and majority are male, of course. But this time round, we're looking at a different angle of all of it. Good morning, Bwana Michael Muga.
Good morning, Nick.
All right. Now, from what we've just read from Migori County, and last time you were here, some sentiments came out, kind of very confusing. So clarification now, with the fact that now women do rape also. Of course, not common all over the world actually, but looking at now how they can be treated, even how the law can now handle them. So far, what do you think about the law? Will it be soft on them, or maybe they'll be treated the same way the male rapists, or the majority, are treated?
Okay, to begin with, there are various jurisdictions where such laws regarding sexuality and women and rape and defilement differ. But with regards to Kenya, it is possible for a woman or a lady to be held accountable for having raped or defiled a man. And the problem is there are certain divergent views, especially among professionals, that cause confusion. Because the law is clear that, yes, if you look at Section 3 of the Sexual Offences Act, it says that he or she, when a person is guilty of rape, when he or she commits an act, an intentional act that leads to penetration. So, but some professionals, especially, I don't know, it's not even a misreading of the law, it's just failure to read the law. Okay. Because it says he or she. But according to them, they hold that, they hold that men cannot, like ladies cannot penetrate, therefore they cannot be found guilty of rape or defilement. So I think that is something that needs to be corrected.
Okay, wow, interesting. So from your sentiment, it means the law hasn't been put clear out there, even for the learned friends in your area. So because it's still a tug of war now, when you look at even the angles of lighter sentence and forgiveness, so it means maybe it's a kind of light on his side. But a man, when they say lighter sentence or forgiveness, that can be like you're crazy, you've raped. Lighter sentence, forgiveness. What do you mean? Look at the woman's side now. She wanted, the lawyers wanted lighter sentence and forgiveness.
Yeah. Unfortunately, with regards to sentencing, the law is very particular. If you look at the offense of rape, then the law says that the only the minimum sentence is 10 years, which can be enhanced to life. If you look at defilement, then it grades according to the age of the child. So that if the child is below the age of 11, then it is life imprisonment, as was the case in Migori. So there is no lighter sentence, lighter than life imprisonment that can be imposed. So that is something that I think will need to be looked at.
Absolutely. Now, historically, rape was thought to be and defined as a crime committed solely against women. Now, it continues saying this belief is still held in some parts of the world, but rape of males is now commonly criminalized and has been the subject to more discussion than it was in the past. Now, looking at all this, it's still a tug of war, because now, as much as you say that law needs to be relooked, the incidences are very harmful. You cannot actually really, we can count them, the women's side. But looking at even our moral stability, do you think also the women in that kind of that capacity have the audacity to go forward? The common cases, but the law says thought to be defined as committed solely by men. But now looking at the moral audacity and the moral capacity even for the women to approach, what happens here now before even rape happens? Consent and everything?
Well, there are misconceptions regarding, say, sexuality between men and women.
Yeah.
If you look at men, then there's the angle that people usually approach of anatomical difficulties, that it will not be possible for a man to be raped, because for him to be raped, then something has to happen, meaning erection.
Yeah.
But the preponderance of studies with regards to male sexuality, erection can occur even in certain altered states of mind like fear or terror, or maybe there's morning erection when, yeah, these things happen. Studies are there that show. Even if you look at things to do with rape, you not say that rape, like when women are raped, you not say that when physiological changes happen in a woman's body during rape that usually occur in consensual sex,
Yeah.
then you not say that this rape has been consented to. Now that is the argument that people are trying to bring, that for a man to be raped, then there has to be an erection. That means it is consensual. It is not. Yeah.
Okay, okay. In 2005, in a school in Western Kenya, a girls' school actually.
Yeah.
A watchman was really terrorized by girls. I won't mention the school.
Yeah.
But this case was really, it took a lot of time to be, because now he went to court, he was represented, but look, this was a gang situation. Now, in a gang situation whereby no one has been seen, what will go on here?
Well, yeah, the Sexual Offences Act actually deals with the offense of gang rape, and that can happen. A man can be gang raped. And that's an interesting story that I think resonates with one that was in, I think in the year 2011 in Zimbabwe, where a group of 3 women are going around raping men. And eventually when they were caught, they were found with a number of used condoms that I think they were collecting semen for some ritual purposes.
Okay.
So, yeah, it is possible that a man can be gang
people are
raped.
weird out here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow,
And they only got caught because their vehicle was involved in an accident.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to Kenya. Zimbabwe story, that was a bit kind of, wow, that was a kind of a shocking story.
Yeah.
But looking at even the gang rape, whereby let's talk physiological changes in a man's response to even the whole situation at the moment.
Yeah.
Now, there's so much debate. I understand you're not a doctor, but still, lawyers, sometimes you can talk about anything.
Yeah.
So still, physiological changes, but looking at also the comfort of your mind.
Yes.
The mind comfort, whereby a man is being subjected to all this. Law has to come in to protect the man, but still look at the impact. Do you think now also we'll be having a situation whereby the woman will be charged on the traumatic impact caused to the man?
Yeah, and if there's a key point before we even get to that, where I'll come back to that. Where rape comes in, you see, when, say, a minor is unable to give consent by law, then even when there's you can say there's consent.
Okay.
Say the Migori case.
Yeah.
They were a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And then there was another case that the High Court in Migori was faced with, involving a 17-year-old and a lady who had several children. She had been warned before, but she kept doing it. So this was a minor by virtue of the fact that he was 17, but he was fully aware. You could argue that he was fully aware. But this was still defilement, if you look at the law strictly. Now, just to come back to your question, you see, when a lady, if you look at things of physiological changes, when a man engages in sex, say consensual or not with a lady, then it is something that can be looked at. You can apply the law to it and say, okay, fine, there was some consent. But if you look, but in cases where there's an altered state of mind, say when a man is under the influence of drugs, is intoxicated, then even when physiological changes happen such that there's an erection, then you cannot say that this person knew the content of what he was doing, that he knew that he was actually engaging in sex. And these are some things that happen, like people go partying, yes? If it happens to a lady that she wakes up, maybe she was drunk and then she wakes up and finds someone engaging in sexual activity with her, then it would ordinarily be considered rape, automatic.
Okay.
But if it happens to a man, then people will say, was she beautiful or something? Or was she not beautiful? Is that why you're complaining? So, but it is rape actually, because there was no consent, even though there were physiological changes in his body that he had an erection.
Okay, interesting. Now, traumatic impact to the man.
Okay, now if you look at the man, yes, there will be some traumatic impact, but it is not necessarily so. It is not in all cases that there's traumatic impact. In fact, the law does not say that it is only rape when there's traumatic impact on the man, but it is rape when there's no consent.
Okay.
So sometimes there are people who may be used to it that they will not feel the trauma in it. Some people are more predisposed to trauma than others, but the trauma in itself does not make one case a rape and the other not a rape.
Okay.
Yeah.
So men have been on the spot for the longest time. Rape cases, 99.9% are men. Or let's say 90% for that matter.
Yeah.
Do you agree with me, 90% with that figure? What do you think about that, 90%?
I don't know about I will not give it figures.
Figures, but still, like, looking even at society, let's work with
majority.
95%.
Yes.
Now, do you think also there should be laws to protect men? Because as much as we condemning men, yes, it's actually a beastly behavior, very bad behavior, but still, the laws to protect these few characters who now commit this. Zimbabwe's story was kind of mind-boggling. Who can just have the audacity to do that?
Well, as far as laws to protect men go, if you look at the Sexual Offences Act, it is gender neutral. It says he or she, even with things to do with defilement. What has been found to be discriminatory is the application of the law. So that while the law is not discriminatory, its application, like when, say, the other day we were discussing children, when children are found minors, found to have engaged in sexual activity, then it's usually the boy who is victimized. But actually, the law says that both of them should face the law.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay, let's take a short break, but when we come back right in Morning Live, we'll be taking your feedback on SMS 22299. What do you think about the whole scenario? Because, yes, it's rare in women raping men, but men are the beasts out there. Some men are the beasts out here raping women. Also, he touched on a very important aspect whereby a woman might be drunk and the man takes advantage. So we'll be expounding more on this story, because sometimes when she wakes up, it's all about negotiation and of course arbitration, and then life continues. So all that coming to you after a short break. Welcome back to Morning Live. Now, the upcoming conversation is all about very weird scenarios you want to touch on, but still, the law has to be applied in one way or another. So, we start off with the situation where the consent, as a woman, as a young girl, you go meet a man and you go, for example, in a drinking spree, and then at some point during the night, the unexpected happens. But now, Wakili Bwana Moga will be expounding more on that. Now, in that situation where she's asleep, dead asleep, and then the act happens, what next now?
Yeah, the law, the distinguishing factor is the consent. As long as the consent is not there, or where it is reasonably believed that it was not given, then that becomes a case of rape.
Wow. Okay.
So in the case of a lady or a man who is sleeping, maybe he or she is in a state of altered consciousness, is very drunk, is unable to give consent,
okay,
and then he or she wakes up and finds someone having sex with him or her, then that would be rape.
Okay, interesting. Looking at even a situation where, wow, this one is kind of crazy also. Can a woman rape a woman?
Well, if you look at what the law is currently, a woman can rape a man, but a woman cannot rape a woman, because it requires...
There's no provision in the law.
It requires for the woman to use an organ, like a sexual organ, to cause penetration.
Okay.
A person to use a sexual organ to cause penetration. For the purposes of the Sexual Offences Act, it falls not under Section 3 rape, but under Section 5, where any other part of the body other than a sexual organ or any other object can be used for penetration.
Okay.
There was an interesting case in the United Kingdom in the year 2015, where a woman was found guilty of having sexually assaulted another woman. What happened is that both ladies were in Chester University, and then one of the ladies, the accused now, she was called Gail Newland. She got into Facebook under Facebook name. She used to call herself Kai Fortune. Yeah.
Man, and you remember these names?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, yes.
Okay.
Now, Kai Fortune was now the name of a man. She represented herself as a man on Facebook, and through Facebook she met a fellow student at Chester University, and then they began to talk. Eventually, when they decided to meet.
So before you continue, she kind of just okay. She met him. She met her as a man.
Yes.
Like she dressed as a man, like everything as a man. Wow,
yes.
Interesting.
So the victim knew that she was chatting with a man.
Okay.
So eventually, when they met, now the accused person gave some conditions for the meet. Yeah, she said that, or he. Let me use he.
He. Yeah.
He said that he had been involved in a terrible accident, and therefore he had suffered some physical injuries and didn't want to be seen. So it required the victim to blindfold herself during sexual activity. And they did that, and that continued for a while. Now, it so happened that during one of the meetups, one day the victim removed the blindfold and saw that this is a lady who is only actually wearing a strap-on, a very realistic strap-on. So that was, it could not be dealt with under the offense of rape, because under rape it would not be possible, because the penetration has to be by a sexual organ. So it was dealt with under sexual assault, because this was an object that was being used for penetration. And that is the same case with Kenya. So while it is possible for a lady to rape a man, a lady cannot rape a lady, but it will be sexual assault. The penalty is the same as that of rape. It's 10 years minimum that can be enhanced to life imprisonment. Yeah.
Wow. Now, another situation, a real life situation whereby you are en route as a young lady with the concept of having sex, and then later on, under indulgence, and then you realize not the person you were supposed to meet, you're having sex with the same, but you're having sex with a different person. Wow.
Yeah,
what happened next?
That can happen. That can happen where a lady, yes, a lady knows that she's going to have sex, or a man knows that she's going to have sex with a lady, a particular lady, and then something happens.
It's a vice versa, actually. It's a two-way traffic. Yeah.
Yes, it can happen either way. Something happens, and then he ends up having sex with someone else. Now, the Sexual Offences Act deals with that. It alludes to it under Section 43, and alludes to it, also deals with it specifically under Section 45. So that if it's someone, you intended to have sex with someone else, but it's someone, you end up having sex with someone else, a different person than you intended to, without your consent, then that can still fall under rape.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now, it's clear some information is not out there, because when you talk about all these things falling under rape, we are being misinformed. Our young ladies, our young sisters, our brothers also are not informed so much about the law. Now, looking at even what you just said right now, unfortunately, even from my side, I'm knowing it right now. I'm just learning about it right now. Wow. I don't know what it means, but still, do you think we need some ways to educate our young girls and our young men? Because at the end of the day, the law is clear. Like, hey, you've done this, you have the right to go report it, and you'll be protected. Yeah.
You know, it is always assumed that men are up to sex all the time, that it's only up to, they should, for the woman to offer, that any time the woman wants to have sex, then the man should be ready to go. But that is not the case. And as I mentioned before, studies have shown that even in cases where there is erection, it doesn't necessarily mean that the man is ready and willing to have sex. So there has to be consent. So yes, there's need for civic education with matters regarding sex and consent and stuff like that. The other thing that I think it's important to mention, that our Sexual Offences Act has been widely vilified for the reason that people say that it unfairly discriminates against men or boys. Well, if you look at our act, it is very progressive in itself. It's even more progressive than the UK Sexual Offences Act in 2003 Sexual Offences Act, if you compare the two. So with all the limitations that our Sexual Offences Act may have, it is still very progressive. And what needs to be done is not to do away with the act as it is as a whole, but look at the particular sections. Like one that I've always thought needed to be looked at is giving judicial officers the discretion to determine for every particular case, not to put minimum sentences, but to determine that, okay, this was a minor who was engaging in sex with another minor, and therefore, instead of the law saying that there's a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years, the judicial officer should be able to look at this and say, okay, maybe for this particular case I can do this and do this. And this is the law, because if you look at that Supreme Court decision in Muruatetu, where the Supreme Court says that the mandatory nature of the death penalty in the penal code is unconstitutional. The provisions in law that deals with sentencing are purely judicial, and judicial authority is governed by Article 159 of the Constitution. So these are things that it is the prerogative of the judicial officer to look at and give a sentence, because the law provides for mitigation.
Yeah, it's true that.
Once someone is found guilty, they're supposed to say, oh, you know, this is my first offense, I'm the sole breadwinner. So if you say that there's a minimum mandatory sentence, what does that mean? It means that this mitigation that you're giving to the court is useless.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because the law, no matter what you say to plead your case, the law is clear that no, the minimum
on both sides, actually.
Yes, on both sides. That the minimum sentence is 15 years.
Okay, that's why the lady recently said she's asking for forgiveness, and she can maybe just think about what she did. She's sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
But the law was clear that as long as the child is below 11 years, it is life imprisonment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No matter what you say.
So looking maybe at the follow-up of our best story today, do you think this will go all the way, or maybe she might be protected at some point?
Okay, the law as it currently stands, you see, that is the law. Maybe if you look at that appeal that I talked about earlier, Irene Otieno Chieng versus the Republic, it was an appeal from the Migori Magistrates Court, where this lady had engaged in sexual activity with a 17-year-old boy, and then she appealed because she had been sentenced to serve 15 years imprisonment, and then she had been told that this was not the first time you were being warned that this is a 17-year-old. It was actually the second time. So she knew that this boy was 17-year-old. So even if it goes on appeal, that case, it is unless the law changes, it is unlikely to nothing is likely to change. But then again, even if the law changes now, the law that will be applicable to her is the law that was there when she committed the offense. So it will not. It's unlikely to help her.
So it seems like there's a gap in terms of even how people can approach this in terms of reporting and just getting that right to maybe the justice itself. Now, why is the gap? Because as these are the few stories we just maybe the public domain, but there's so many things happening here. A parent discovers the boy or the girl. Okay, let's not talk about the boy this time around. Something has been happening, and then it's about just talking and everything, and then life goes on. Now, the systems. What do you think about the systems? Do you think we have the systems whereby we can directly go to, and maybe who can we go to in terms of such situations?
We have the systems. If the police service, as it stands now, is very properly empowered. They are gender officers. What needs to be done, perhaps, is education, because some, as I mentioned, even professionals, even I'm sorry to say, advocates, are not really. Is that they just don't go into the law to find out what the law actually says. Like people propagate some things without actually knowing what the facts are. Perhaps maybe to go off topic, but to raise something that has bothered me for a while, where in reference to the Marriage Act, people usually say that as long as there's been cohabitation for 6 months, then people can be considered married.
And we talked about this thing last week.
This is a provision that was there in the marriage bill. By the time it was being enacted into a statute, then it had been removed. But because it had been highlighted so much on media, people actually still think that that is part of the Kenyan law, but it is not. So cohabitation for 6 months does not constitute marriage. So to come back to our topic.
But still, before you come back to that topic, that's a very interesting angle. Cohabitation, yes, we're talking about the Sexual Offences Act, cohabitation for 6 months, not marriage. But look, when someone goes to court, and provides reasonable reason why this thing is happening. And maybe, for example, you know, marriage is this, so there's a process, the solemnization and everything. It's a process actually.
Yeah.
But when someone goes to court and says, "I've been cohabiting with him or her for 6 months," and according to the law, that will happen, will they be protected? Or what do you think? Because now you're mentioning there's a gap here, knowledge and everything.
Okay, there's something called common law marriage. And a common law marriage where people had been living together overtly and people knew them to be married, then they could say that, okay, you see, we've been considering ourselves a man and wife for this number of years, and people know us as man and wife. Then, under such circumstances, that you could say that there was marriage, and maybe it could be recognized.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Marriage Act currently, it is very clear on the provisions regarding marriage, so that even with you've noticed even customary law marriages are required to be registered by the Registrar of Marriages. So there's still a grey area with regards to the validity of common law marriages. Okay. But with regards to 6 months cohabitation, that in itself does not result in marriage. Unless there are some really extenuating circumstances that would push a judicial officer to determine that yes, there was marriage. Okay. So back to our topic, just proceed, sure. So back to our topic, there is need to for civic education, because this is a matter that is at the heart of the society. You know, sexuality is something that is overt. People go to, as we mentioned, parties, people get drunk, things happen, but people really need to know where consent comes in, where misrepresentation of facts, so that you engage with someone that you did not intend to engage to. People need to know this is where the law draws the line. This is what I can do, and I can reach this limit. People really need to know that. Okay. Thank you very much, Bwana Makomuga, for coming to the studio. I really appreciate your sentiments, and I believe also the public knowledge. People should know about what's happening, because at the end of the day, this is all about getting the right. Because when you say I need forgiveness and it will never happen again, and the law provides that this is a criminal offense or sexual act offense, I think public should be let know how to follow the procedure. And maybe before you go, you've mentioned the police, but lawyers, how expensive are you guys? For someone who wants to approach you guys now, I need help. I need help here. I understand lawyers, you've been so expensive of late. What is happening? You know, the practice of law, what lawyers charge is governed by the Advocacy Remuneration Order, which provides for the minimums that advocates are supposed to charge for their services. In fact, charging less than what is provided under the Remuneration Order is illegal in itself. But the public should be advised that even when you're seeking the services of a lawyer, first of all, a lawyer is bound by that order, yes, and then you should also know that the kind of advice that the lawyer is going to give you, you should know that perhaps it is possible that you could talk to a number of lawyers, yes. But the key thing is that the remuneration order is still key. But talk to a number of lawyers if it is something that deals with fees. But even if you don't want to pay fees, say you've been charged in court, then the law still provides that for certain offences, you need to have you're entitled to a state-sponsored advocate. So state-sponsored. So the state will sort out everything. Yes. Okay, interesting. So another question. Other lawyers even do pro bono matters. Pro bono. So even your laws allow you to go the pro bono way. You can do pro bono. You can do pro bono matters. It's actually true. So long as you don't charge what is below the minimum provided by the order. But if you're doing pro bono as a matter of public service, it's pro bono completely. That's completely legal. All right. What about gifts? Gifts? It's like gift. Someone says, okay, thank you so much. As much as you paid this much, you can also take this other thing. You had your figure. Yes. They paid the exact figure. But still, now they want to add. That's fine. Outside now. Because the order provides for minimums. If someone wants to pay you anything more than what is provided, that's fine. So no integrity issues, no... There are no integrity issues whatsoever. Thank you so much, Bwana Makomuga, for coming. And I'll see you soon once again, because now we still have so many things to be discussed right here on Morning Live. As much as law is related, thank you so much for coming. Now we move across...